Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari. Yashodanandana Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajarandana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridvaradhari. Jai 5th Canto, Chapter 13. Rahugana converses with Jada, Bharata. Text 6. Kvachit vitoya sarito beati parasparam chalase niranda asadya davam kachit agni tapto nivinjate kwacha yasharatasu Kvachit vitoya sarito beati parasparam chalasate niranda asadya davam kvachit agni tapto nividyate kwacha yaksharitasu Kvachit vitoya sarito beati parasparam chalasate niranda asadya davam kvachit agni tapto nividyate kwacha yaksharitasu Sometimes, vitoya, without depth to the water. Sarita, rivers. Abhiyati, he goes to bathe or jumps into. Paraspranam, one another. Cha, and al-sate, desires. Niranda, being with no stock of food. Asaja, experiencing. Davam, a forest fire in family life. Quachit, sometimes. Agni tapta, burned by fire. Nividyate is despondent. Qua, somewhere. Cha, and. Yakshai, by kings, resembling rogues and thieves. Brita, taken away. Asu, wealth, which is as dear as one's life. Translation. Sometimes the conditioned soul jumps into a shallow river, or being short of food grains, he goes to beg food from people who are not at all charitable. Sometimes he suffers from the burning heat of household life, which is like a forest fire. And sometimes he becomes sad to have his wealth, which is as dear as life, plundered by kings in the name of heavy income taxes. Purport. When it is hot due to the scorching sun, one sometimes jumps into a river to gain relief. However, if the river is almost dried up and the water is too shallow, one may break his bones by jumping in. The conditioned soul is always experiencing miserable conditions. Sometimes his efforts to get help from friends are exactly like jumping into a dry river. By such actions, he does not derive any benefit. He only breaks his bones. Sometimes, suffering from a shortage of food, one may go to a person who is neither able to give charity nor willing to do so. Sometimes one is stationed in household life, which is compared to a forest fire. Samsara dava nana lina loka. When a man is heavily taxed by the government, he becomes very sad. Heavy taxation obliges one to hide his income. But despite this endeavor, the government agents are often so vigilant and strong that they take away all the money anyway. And the conditioned soul becomes very aggrieved. Thus, people are trying to become happy within the material world, but this is like trying to be happy in a forest fire. No one needs to go to a forest to set it ablaze. Fire takes place automatically. Similarly, no one wants to be unhappy in family life or worldly life, but by the laws of nature, unhappiness and distress are forced upon everyone. To become dependent on another's maintenance is very degrading. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, everyone should live independently. Only the Shudras are unable to live independently. They are obliged to serve someone for maintenance. It is said in the Shastras, Kalo Shudra Sambhava. In this age of Kali, everyone is dependent on another's mercy for the maintenance of the body. Therefore, everyone is classified as a Shudra. In the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that in Kali Yuga, the government will levy taxes without reciprocally benefiting the citizens. Anavristya vanamsyanti durbhiksha kadapidataha. In this age, there will also be a shortage of rain. Therefore, a scarcity of food will arise, and the citizens will be very much harassed by government taxation. In this way, the citizens will abandon their attempts to lead a peaceful life and will leave their homes and hearths and go to the forest in sheer disappointment. Translation again. Sometimes the conditioned soul jumps into a shallow river, or being short of food grains, he goes to beg food from people who are not at all charitable. Sometimes he suffers from the burning heat of household life, which is like a forest fire. And sometimes he becomes sad to have his wealth, which is as dear as life, plundered by kings in the name of heavy income taxes. Om Agana Chimarantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This chapter presents a metaphorical device spoken by Jada Bharata with Maharaj Rahugana. Jada Bharata is in the role of an avaduta beyond all social protocols. His behavior is beyond all social guidelines. He's free to speak whatever he wants to speak. And he's been insulted by Rahugana, the king. But Jada Bharata controls himself. And when the king realizes this is not some brute, this is not some dummy, because the king, heard some retorts from Jada Bharata that made the king realize this is a self-realized soul. So now Rahugana is begging for instruction. That is the purpose of the sadhu. That's the purpose of the spiritual master, to give instruction how to serve Krishna better. And serving Krishna better should be the aspiration of every real disciple. So Jada Bharata is speaking in a way to disassociate the king from material nature. Now we have to decide for ourselves. Do we want that? Do we want to be disassociated from material nature? Or are we hoping Krishna will make our association with material nature more pleasurable? What is our desire? That we have to decide. Jada Bharata is speaking in an allegory, the forest of material enjoyment, so as not at first to just get right in the face of the king. Also, these subject matters, when you're attached to material life, these subject matters are difficult to assimilate. So Jada Bharata is using this metaphorical device of the forest to demonstrate the realities of material existence. He's doing that out of mercy, so the king gets it. Now we have to ask ourselves, do we get it? Or do we want to get it? Maybe not. Of course, anyone who takes to the chanting of Hare Krishna is special. But the question is, how long do we want to wait for our specialness to fructify? How many births? Just like when Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda visited the home of one very degraded person and then left to go to Shantipur to deal with Advaitacharya. Advaitacharya was pretending to teach Mayavad philosophy so that Lord Chaitanya would chastise him. Because up until that point, Lord Chaitanya was worshiping Advaitacharya as the godbrother of his guru. But Advaitacharya couldn't stand that. But anyway, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda had just come from the home of a very degraded person. And so you might think, why wasn't that degraded person delivered immediately? But this is something to be decided by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because when Lord Chaitanya is touring South India, he would bless whoever crossed his path with Krishna praying. And And then that person would cross others' paths and bless them, transfer to them the Krishna praying. In this way, Lord Chaitanya covered the whole of South India with love of Krishna. He didn't do this in Navadvip. The Shastra explains that in Navadvip, Lord Chaitanya, as Nimai Pandit, didn't fully manifest his drowning the world in ecstatic love of Krishna. Because in Navadvip there were so many pumped up pandits, false logicians, blasphemers, persons attached to Vedic rituals for good karma. But when Lord Chaitanya left Navadvip, then went to Puri briefly, and then went to South India. In South India, he let it all out. So it's up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead when to flood the world with love of Krishna. Just like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's described by Kaviraj Goswami that first Krishna came and demonstrated his Braj Leela, his spontaneous pastimes of pure love. But then after that, Krishna thought. And Chaitanya Charitamrita introduces us to how Krishna is thinking. Krishna thought, I've demonstrated my Braj Leela, but I actually haven't distributed love of myself. I haven't actually distributed the taste of Braj Leela. I've demonstrated it, but I haven't given anything out. I've just staged my transcendental show of Braj Leela, Dwarka Leela, Mathura Leela, but I didn't give any access, especially to Braj Leela. So now I should come as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and distribute the taste of loving Krishna, even among persons who don't know who is Krishna. So we were talking about Lord Chaitanya visiting the home of a very degraded person. He was with Nityananda. Eventually things got too intense. Things became too degraded when the person offered Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, some alcohol, some wine, calling it Ananda, bliss. When you like some Ananda. And Lord Chaitanya, although omniscient, in this pastime, asked Nityananda, well, what's this talk about Ananda? What's he offering? Nityananda said, I'm pretty sure he's offering wine. Lord Chaitanya said, let's get out of here. They were in the middle of eating fruit and drinking milk. They wouldn't eat the food cooked by such a person, but they had acquired some milk and some fruit, and they were having that. But in the middle of the conversation, in the middle of the lunch, this degraded person was offering wine. Ananda, would you like some Ananda? So Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda got up, washed their mouths and hands, and took off and jumped into the Ganga. Jumped right in the Ganga. So why didn't this degraded person immediately become liberated? He had Lord Chaitanya in his home. But that's something between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and each individual. There's no obligation. But Vrindavan Das Thakur explains that although in this life the degraded person didn't reach perfection, but in the next life he would. So sometimes, according to the Lord's desire, the seed of bhakti takes longer to sprout. So this is showing you the intricacies of material existence and how, if we have an opportunity to serve Krishna, we should hold on tight to it through thick and thin. And there is thick and thin, even in the world of bhakti, because we're practicing bhakti in the material world. And to the extent that we identify with the currents, the waves of the material world, to that extent we think that bhakti is problematic. Srila Prabhupada gives this very wonderful example when he was in Gainesville, Florida, which he called a remote part of the world. He talked about a boat being on a lake, and the lake has waves, and you're standing in that boat. If you don't have proper knowledge and realization, you'll think the waves are rocking you. The waves of the lake, blown by the wind, are rocking you. But actually, the waves are rocking the boat. You happen to be standing in the boat. But due to your misidentifying with the boat as you think the waves are rocking you. So in bhakti, according to our realization, we are rocked, and we identify with the rocking either as external to us or it's happening to me, oh no, oh no. So we need knowledge, realized knowledge, and that's what Jada Bharata is giving to Maharaj Rahugana. And Jada Bharata is choosing to make his point about the need to disassociate from material nature. He's making that point through an allegory. And he explains it a little bit in this chapter. But in the next chapter, he really gets into it. This is what it means when I say. What's another famous allegory in Bhagavatam? 4th canto, Puranjana. Very educational. Narada Muni begins explaining there once was a king, sort of like you, and then constructs this whole allegory. Takes up quite a few chapters. So let's get into the forest of material enjoyment. Generally, forests can produce various visions in your mind. Sometimes forests can appear to you as a very dangerous place. Not a place you would wander around on your own, depending on which country you're in and what the state of that country is, because things change, current events change. So you might think the forest is a dangerous place, struggle for existence. If you look at the level beyond just human interactions with the forest, you realize that the forest is a struggle for existence. Different creatures are gobbling up other creatures. There's birth and there's death of foliage and vegetation and trees. It's all going on, but we might think, just as a human being, should I go into the forest alone? Others think the forest is such an inviting place. It's a place of peace. There's a very popular therapy called forest bathing, in which you soothe your anxieties by going into the forest and just embracing being in the forest, laying on the ground, looking at the sky, breathing in the trees, hearing the birds. Regardless of what we think at the moment, because what we think changes every moment, the forest of material enjoyment is a dangerous place. But we think, but I'm getting a little bit of happiness. Why you're stressing that it's a dangerous place? Yeah, there are problems, but there are also good times. Very quickly, the forest of material enjoyment reveals itself to be a place of suffering. Just a few weeks ago at Muriwai Beach, is that how you pronounce it, Muriwai? There was a family enjoying, having a wonderful time, whooping it up in delight. And there was the father of 4 children with number 5 on the way. And they were all having fun on a sand dune. The sand dune collapsed. I don't know how it is a sand dune collapses, but that's what happened. The sand dune collapsed. He went to the hospital in critical condition, and that was the end of him. So, 1 minute shrieks of delight, the next minute shrieks of terror. And what do we say? Well, he had some good times. That's how we try to console ourselves. So the forest of material enjoyment has problems due to our wanting to enjoy material nature. So that's why what Rahugana says, what he hears rather, from Jada is very important. Because we think, all right, there are exceptional cases of disasters like what we just described about the sand dune, but basically, they're good times, and I want to enjoy material nature. When I was in the USA, I was telling them one surprising thing. Everyone, when they think about it, which they don't like to, is afraid of nuclear warfare. Because in a second, millions of persons can die. So, the first nuclear blast, around August something, 1945, detonated the city of Hiroshima in Japan. Instantly. This bomb was like a firecracker compared to what's available today. So this bomb only killed immediately 70,000 persons only. Did you know a nuclear submarine today carries enough nuclear destruction power that equals 21 times what dropped on Hiroshima? Just one submarine. So there was this man from Nagasaki, another city in Japan, and he was sent by his company to Hiroshima to do some work, and he was supposed to leave on the day that the atomic bomb dropped. His work assignment had ended, and he was supposed to leave Hiroshima for Nagasaki on that very day, and then, boom, the whole city is incinerated. Some or other he survived, and he was very disfigured. People's skins are burning and hanging off their body, and their eyeballs are out, and some or other he was able to take the train that night to Nagasaki. And he went to the hospital in Nagasaki where one of his friends was a surgeon. The surgeon couldn't recognize his friend because the man was so disfigured by the nuclear blast. And then the next day, or a couple of days after, this man who had lived through the atomic bombing of Hiroshima went to work. Japan people are very dutiful. They have a special word in Japanese. There's no one-word equivalent in English. Karoshi, death by overwork. So he went to work. So disfigured, remember, that the surgeon friend of his couldn't recognize him at the hospital. He went to work, and he was explaining to his boss what it was like, the atomic bomb explosion in Hiroshima. And the boss was saying to him, I don't believe this. There's no explosion so powerful that can level a whole city. I don't believe it. Are you mad? Boom! The atomic bomb on Nagasaki explodes. So he's the government has calculated about 165 persons who in the space of 1 week went through 2 atomic bombings. What kind of karma is that? This is the forest of material enjoyment. By his karma, he somehow managed to live into his 90s. So, how can you explain this materially? So, Jada is explaining to Rahugana Maharaj, these things happen and will happen. Don't become blinded just by momentary satisfaction. You see, this is the problem with our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is at war with our material perceptions. That I see opportunities for pleasure, for satisfaction. It'll happen to me. Yeah, there'll be some problems, but there'll be some good times too. The Bhagavatam is at war with that. Because from the Bhagavatam's perspective, temporary happiness does not count as happiness. And what do we say? It does. It's something. And then if we really get persistent, we say, why can't we have both? The temporary happiness and the permanent spiritual happiness. Let's have both. And then still the Bhagavatam is in your face explaining that on the standard of pure bhakti, there's no room for insignificant, inferior material pleasure. What? What is this? Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radokshite ahituki apratiyata yanatma supersediti. The only way the Atma, the self, will be satisfied is by pure bhakti to Krishna. So the Bhagavatam won't even let us rest in peace with having both material and spiritual happiness, because it shoves in our face the standard of pure bhakti. This is why Lord Chaitanya said, before you are liberated, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and after you are liberated, go on hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. As we'll discuss during our midday program when we give out some full sets of Srimad Bhagavatam, because today is Bhadra Purnima, we'll explain how the Bhagavatam is indeed the literary presence, literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it doesn't allow you, it's not giving you any consolation, any false shelter. It's not giving you any false comfort that material happiness, although temporary, means something. So this is very difficult for us to deal with, because we insist, all right, material happiness is not the best. It doesn't compare to spiritual happiness, but you gotta have something, so why not have both? And the Bhagavatam is pushing you to be a pure devotee, and we want to be mixed devotees. Right? A little bit of Krishna, a little bit of material enjoyment. What a blend! I'm so much better than I was before when I knew nothing about spiritual satisfaction. Now I know something about it. Before I just knew about material satisfaction. So I'm better off knowing both now. That's it. That's all I need to get by. I know they're both. But the Bhagavatam, as I said, won't let you rest in peace. It just is in your face from so many angles that how can you call happiness that's temporary real happiness? How can you do that? It's raising your standard, and we want the standard, come down, come down to our level. And the Bhagavatam is saying, come up to the Bhagavatam's level. So this is the struggle that's going on in the core of your being. And unless you bathe your intelligence every day in the science and cultural presentation of Bhagavatam, the weeds grow. Just like anyone who's dealing with farming knows that you have to be attentive about the weeds. You got to watch the weeds. Watch for their growth. So unless we hear Bhagavatam and let it purify our intelligence every day, problems in our spiritual life develop, because we're so prone to wanting both. And we think, look, where I'm at is better than I was where I was before. That's true. Before I didn't know anything about spiritual satisfaction. All I knew was material indulgence. Now I know there's such a thing as bhakti. And also there's the material happiness. So why not have both and leave it at that? So the Bhagavatam is appealing to all levels of devotees and pushing you closer to Krishna. And sometimes we resent that unconsciously. I've had it. I've heard enough of this. Leave me alone. So what if I'm a conditioned soul? Leave me alone. I'll snap out of it one day. Don't worry. So Judd Bard is explaining the problems that develop. Sometimes the conditioned soul jumps into a shallow river, or being short of food grains, he goes to beg food from people who are not at all charitable. Sometimes he suffers from the burning heat of household life, which is like a forest fire. And sometimes he becomes sad to have his wealth, which is as dear as life, plundered by kings in the name of heavy income taxes. But you will say, what's the problem with suffering from the burning heat of household life, which is like a forest fire. Just start a new relationship. What's the big deal? That one doesn't work, start another one. What's the problem? Relationship after relationship after relationship. You know, that's the way it is. Why expect that one person can satisfy you all your life? It's impossible. So just shop around, shuffle. A series, serial relationships. What's the problem with that? The problem is that it is murder on your emotional stability. Devotees have been asking me, what's happening out there? What's wrong with, what's going on with people today? I was explaining yesterday to the brahmacharis how traditionally in Western societies, the most unhappy group are those in the Middle Ages. Anyone here in Middle Ages, 40s and 50s? Traditionally, if you weren't an attentive bhakti practitioner, traditionally you would be in the most unhappy group. Because when you're 40s or 50s, when you're in your 40s or 50s, what are you thinking? Death can come and I haven't enjoyed enough. You look at your partner, what have you done for me? What are you doing for me? I'm in my 40s. Old age is knocking on my door. The ladies lose their good looks quicker than a man. And so, especially the ladies, start getting uptight. Oh my God. How am I going to get my way? I look bad. So traditionally, the middle-aged people are the most unhappy because they know the end is coming, but I haven't enjoyed enough. What am I going to do? I'll drop my family, time for a new relationship, time for a new this, a new that. I got to do something because time is banging on my door. But now, what is the most unhappy group in first world countries? Youth between the ages of 18 and 30. They're the most unhappy. Anyone here between the ages of 18 and 30? So why is it that our youth are feeling such oppressive unhappiness? It's because the world is so uncertain. They don't know. What jobs should I get for the future? Artificial intelligence is taking over everything. What do I study in school? What's the use in going to university and piling up debts? And you've learned something that's no longer, the employers don't care about it? Just like in the USA, not only USA, but New Zealand too. 10 or 15 years ago, the big push was go to school and learn computer programming, be a coder, learn computer science. Your future is guaranteed, six-figure income for sure. So all the big titans of Silicon Valley were urging the world, learn computer science. You've got an automatic job. We have a shortage of programmers and coders. What happened now? They're all being laid off. They're all out of a job because artificial intelligence is doing their work better than they could. So same thing in New Zealand. One lady was reporting she applied in New Zealand for 400 jobs and didn't get one. One person in the USA reported applying for 5,000 jobs. Online, you can do like that. And didn't get one offer. Sometimes you send in your application online, and within 2 minutes, the rejection letter comes, generated by artificial intelligence. This is going on. One man he finished university in computer science and applied for so many jobs, not one request even for an interview, and then he decided, oh, what's the use? I'll apply at Burger King to be a burger flipper. They didn't accept him. They said, you're too qualified. So now, all the persons who study computer science, they're realizing we don't have a future. Now you might say, well, what about with AI? You can learn AI and make big money now. No, only a few persons. Our Chandidas Prabhu was explaining to me last night. You have to be on top of the whole pile of the AI knowledge to almost understand what it's about. And those persons are making, like a big sports star in the US, they're making $100 million a year. And there are very few of them, so there's competition between Apple, Microsoft, Google, who can find the ones who can find the few persons who can hire them, who understand AI from the ground on up to its future potential. Very few persons, and they can, like a top sports star in the US, they can command $100 million a year, please. This is what's going on. The average person will never see the employment benefits of AI. In fact, most likely, you'll be put out of a job, just like when I was, where was I? Los Angeles. You easily, every 2 minutes, see a self-driving car go by, replacing taxi drivers. Every 2 minutes you see one. You look in the windows of the car, from your car, you don't see a driver. Every 2 minutes one's going by. So I remember 20 years ago here at New Varshana, I was discussing with one former Prime Minister of New Zealand, David Longy, and he predicted this day is coming when people will not have work. So we have to find, he said, a way that people can think they have some self-worth and self-value even though they have no job. We have to find a way. He said part of the solution is to give them so much entertainment, sports and media. Back then there was no social media. Give them all kinds of entertainment on the screen or in coliseums, arenas, and that'll keep them content. And that's exactly what's going on. He said, we don't want people trying to figure out what the government does. Just enjoy your sports, enjoy your screens, and leave it at that. And he kept repeating a mantra to me. If you're smart enough to figure this out, become one of us. Otherwise, just be controlled and be happy. So what's going on with the young people today is tragic. There's a huge public health epidemic amongst young people between the ages of 18 and 30. Anxiety disorders, depression. They don't know what the future is going to be. The world is no longer a quasi-peaceful place. Non-cooperation and aggression is becoming the norm. No mercy anymore. Blow up hospitals, kill women and children. It's all happening. And so young people are wondering, what kind of world is this? What's my place in it? Economically, there's uncertainty. Politically, there's instability. And then I'm in so much anxiety due to social media, which is supposed to bring everyone together. And also, besides being the most unhappy age group, people between the ages of 18 and 30 are the loneliest. What? Loneliness? Loneliest? They have all the social media. They're always online. Doesn't that bring people together? No. It used to be that old people were the loneliest. Not anymore. It's the young people. So they're lonely. They're facing economic uncertainty. They're wondering what kind of world is this in terms of international relations. Then there's the environment. Climate change. Is it for real? Is it not? What's going on? And then what are all the young men doing? What would you do if you were a young man and you knew nothing about bhakti? What would you do as a young man? Online pornography for sure. Why not? Why not? You've got no understanding of dharma. You've got no understanding of mind and sense control. Why not? Oh, Jesus said not to. So that's the Western world now. also in India, decimating India. In India, it provides the perfect opportunity for being a hypocrite. You go to the temple, Jai Shri Krishna. Then in the privacy of your own home, on your laptop or phone, you plunge to the bottom of Kali Yuga. So the men are devastated by online pornography. You can almost guarantee almost every man, his mind is totally destroyed. And watching that online pornography makes them think this is what women should be like. Of course, online pornography is a fantasy, but they bring these fantasies into relationships and destroy the relationship. And then the ladies, what do they get from all this? Emotional devastation. The men are devastated by online porn. The ladies are devastated by trying to adapt to the male's craziness. And in fact, the ladies start thinking, we can play the game too. We can play it better than the men. And in this way, things become increasingly hellish. So this is what's going on. So what Jud Bharat is preaching to Rahugana is very important. It's exposing what's going on. And now we say, well, sometimes, quachit. It doesn't happen all the time. And when it doesn't happen, we're happy. Sometimes he suffers from the burning heat of household life. Just sometimes. One of our devotees, who's a psychological therapist, told me one example. Now you'll say, but that was just an exceptional case, right? You always have to think like that. Someone on the sand dune collapses, exceptional. And this next one I'm going to tell you, exceptional. So there was a man whose best friend, the wife of his best friend, died. And to help console the best friend, the man and his wife said, come stay at our home. So we'll help you get through this emotional tragedy. And then after a few months, one day, the man of the house comes home, and his wife and the other man tell him, by the way, we're having an affair, and we want you to leave, and we want the house. His best friend, who he took in to help the friend over an emotional crisis, the friend having lost his wife, gives him a place in his home, and then he loses his wife to him, and loses his house. They both just said, look, you get out. This is our house now. Your best friend. I know, quachit sometimes. So we need to take these statements of Jud Bharat very serious. And in this way, we can start, in this way the veil starts to fall away from what material life is all about. But we're so addicted that even if material happiness is temporary, it's something. We're so addicted to that, in spite of being aggrieved by so much suffering. That's all right. Yes, there's suffering, but I see it. I see possibilities. That's all I want before I die. Then I'll die satisfied that I've had this, I've had that, I've had that. Just a few days ago, two of the biggest national leaders of their country, were meeting in China. One from Russia, the other from China. And they didn't realize the mic was still on as they were walking along. And they were saying, because one's been in power for 25 years, the other's been in power for 13 years. So they were discussing plans, how to live forever. Yeah, with organ transplants, you could live to at least 150, maybe eternally. That sounds straight out of Hiranyakashipu. You're so attached to power and control that You feel assured the scientists with their organ replacement can allow us to live at least 150. And then they actually said, maybe eternally. I'll be eternally in control. So again, question, sometimes, some cases. In this way, we shield ourselves from the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we suffer. But thanks to Jada Bharat, he's waking us up, he's pulling the covers off the situation, and teaching us what to do with our human form of life. So don't blame Jada Bharat for disassociating Rahugana Maharaj from material nature. He's giving the greatest, Jada Bharat's giving the greatest mercy. So by studying this chapter, you feel so purified. I know I did, reading the whole chapter. It cuts down, like you cut down trees or cut down weeds. It cuts down all your false expectations, all your imaginations, all your hopes and dreams. And we may think that's bad. But in this way, we become more fertile for the seed of bhakti. Part of bhakti is hearing about the negative, and the other part is hearing about the positive. In order for the bhakti lata, the plant of pure devotion, to grow, we have to always weed the garden. How many of you have gardens? Anyone? Yes. What happens if you don't look for the weeds? That's the end of your garden, gradually. So, Jada Bharat is helping you to weed your bhakti garden so that your attachment for Krishna can develop unhindered. So we have to make peace with this Bhagavatam stance that temporary happiness is not real happiness at all. Fight back, come on, be stubborn about it. It's not all that bad. There may be some problems. It's something, it may not be everything, but it's something. You feel yourself fighting back, don't you? Sometimes this happens, quachit. Only sometimes. What about birth, death, old age, and disease? Only sometimes? We fight back because we're attached. So the purpose of this allegory is to detach us. And therefore it's so helpful. And in the next chapter, Jada Bharat's going to go into it even more deeply. This chapter is just a prior taste. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Yes?
Hare Krishna, Jada. Thank you for the class. I was wondering, when we're on Sankirtan and we approach people, what is the best way to convince them they're in a forest fire without freaking them out?
Sell them the book. The book can explain it better than you can. By your smile and enthusiasm, influence them to buy the book. Don't try to give them a lecture on the street corner. Yes?
You mentioned that people suffering more and more as Kali progresses, especially the young people. So we might face a challenge. We want to help these people come to Krishna consciousness, but they might also be very degraded and in very low modes. How do we reconcile this?
We're going to have to face the facts that Western society is disintegrating, the social fabric, and we have to deal with that. We need devotee therapists, we need devotee social counselors. We can't just pretend, oh, there's just a few of those devastated persons. The whole population, especially the young people, they're being turned upside down totally, with no future expectation. Even the expectations of Kiwi youth 10 years ago, before COVID, they're finished. Well, 10 years ago you could think of yourself as getting a temporary job, doing this and that, and then what? Go on your OE. And then in your late 20s, after multiple serial relationships, you finally settle on one person after doing your prenuptial agreement. And then you buy a house. What's the possibility of that these days? Unless you inherit from your parents, you can forget it. You'll be renting all your life and lucky to find somewhere to rent. So young people are feeling that kind of pressure. I remember when I first came, I was telling the brahmacharis, when I first came to New Zealand, 93, the brahmacharis had a house in Balmoral. 4 bedrooms on the top floor, 2 bathrooms, and a finished basement where so many persons could stay, and a bathroom. How much did it cost? $500 a week. I remember then, a few years later, the brahmacharis had a place, 3-bedroom house in Sandringham, which is practically the CBD. How much did they pay? $350 a week for a Sandringham location. So there was hope, there was possibility. I'm a young person, I get a little odd job here and there. Just like when I met our Dina Dayala Devi. I was pleading with her, don't go overseas, don't go overseas, but she had to do it. She had to go to London for the OE. She had some money, off to London she goes. There was hope for enjoyment, for security. Forget it now. So all the traditional expectations for a young person they're finished. What's your chance of ever owning your own home unless you inherit from your parents? What's your chance of getting an odd job here and there? What are you going to do with yourself? You went to the uni, you studied computer science to be on the cutting edge, and now no one's hiring IT people. In the USA, in the first half of this year, Microsoft, just Microsoft alone, laid off 10,000 workers. This is what's going on. When I was visiting temples in the USA, so many devotees had told me they've been laid off, they're looking for another job, and these are not low-income jobs. They've been laid off from middle income and lower top level jobs. So this is affecting young people. Where's the hope? I go to the uni, study, well, I think I'll study Italian literature. It used to happen. We used to meet so many young people like that. Follow my fancy. And meanwhile, piling up $30,000 worth of debts for their education. But they had some hope. Somehow or other, when I study Italian literature, some school will hire me to teach Italian literature to the kids. There was some kind of hope. Forget it now. No one knows what to do. Should we study computer science? Can't do that anymore. Should we study AI? Well, you've got to be a genius to deal with that. So what to do? Meanwhile, the men are totally addicted to pornography. And what's wrong with that? I mean, we're not religious. What do you think we are? Some kind of holy Joe? It's there. Why not indulge? Better than real life. And the ladies, desperate for a meaningful relationship, they're emotionally devastated. Because they have to deal with these men. And the ladies also have to deal with their false expectations of what these men can offer. So in this way, it is such a mess. This is what's going on. So remember, in first world countries, the statistics show those between the ages of 18 and 30 are the most unhappy. This is totally different from what's ever happened before. Generally, as I said, it's the middle-aged people who are unhappy because they know old age is coming, my good looks, My beauty, my handsomeness is going to go down the drain, and I haven't enjoyed sufficiently. So that's usually the unhappy group in the 40s and 50s. Now it's between 18 and 30. Anything else? Yes.
Ramesh, I know that you're suggesting this may sound an inappropriate question, but as a mother, the problem that you're stating starts to haunt me for our devotee children. How do we look to support them in this kind of a world?
You can explain to them what's going on. And somehow, as best you can, protect your kids from what's on the screen. That's not going to be easy. I know my mother used to patrol the screen. Back then we just had TV screen. She would patrol it. She would say, you can't watch any TV shows that show minority groups in a demeaning role. Can't do it. So then we go out on the street, play with our friends, and they say, did you see that show? What about this show? Oh, your mother won't let you watch it. But my mother said, one day you'll see I'm right. So all her children became materially high achievers. So the first thing parents can do is realize you're at war with the screens. How are you going to handle that? Each family has its different policies. Anything else? Yes.
Thank you for class very good. I was thinking an observation that I made with some young people is that the two problems that they face when coming to Krishna consciousness. One is that they have a lack of trust in other people, and especially religious institutions, based on what they've seen in the past. And the other thing is when
They think that there are many paths.
yeah, there was that, but also when they look at Krishna consciousness from what, on first impressions, they can't really see how it will make their life too much better. There's so many problems, they don't see how it will solve the problems they don't see how Krishna consciousness will solve the problems that they're facing in life, the material problems.
Somehow or other, you have to get them to chant Hare Krishna and read Bhagavatam. Somehow or other. We have no other medicine. We'd be cheating them if we tried to offer some other medicine. So it becomes a situation in which you can do more service by figuring out how to get them to take shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra and Srimad Bhagavatam. I remember when I first came to New Zealand in '93, it was right in the middle of the New Age boom. Now New Age is no big deal. Everyone figures we don't need New Age to have sense gratification. We just have sense gratification. We don't need any New Age notions. But back then, the New Age was hitting so hard. Does anyone here remember that? Yes, Tina Devi remembers. It was the Yuga Dharma. So we thought, impossible. They had so many retreat centers open in New Zealand, offering New Age this, New Age that. Remember in Coromandel, is it still there, the Mana Retreat Center? It was doing huge business back in the 90s. Every week a different New Age speaker would be there. So we thought, impossible. I was also explaining to the brahmacharis about New York in 1973, when every day from India to the international airport in New York would arrive another guy. So you'd be on Sankirtan, and in one day of Sankirtan you would meet at least 3 different persons who would tell you, my guru's God, Baba so-and-so is God. At least 3 times a day, different. Each one a different God. It was oppressive. I remember it was so oppressive that when Srila Prabhupada told us that keep distributing his books, and one day all these bogus avatars and gurus will go away. We had trouble believing that. Really? They're all going to go away? And that's what happened. But at the time, we thought, impossible. I don't know what it was like, whether this was the same in Australia. You can ask Jai Shila Prabhu. But this is the way it was like in New York City, because they would first stop was New York. Get on the plane, Air India from Mumbai to New York, and every day a new avatar would land. I know it's hard for you to believe. Similarly, New Zealand back in 93, 94, 95, 96, flooded with New Age. Now it's all disappeared. Bookshops were thriving with books about New Age this, New Age that. How many of you remember the Celestine Prophecy? Mega seller, #1 throughout the world. We used to offer seminars on Celestine Prophecy at the loft. 30 people would attend, speculating their heads off. So there's always some impediment. There's always some problem. It's up to us doing service to figure out how to handle the situation. Look at Prabhupada. He came to New York, to the USA, and for 1 year had no one. Not one person to assist him, not one student, nothing. The emissary from the spiritual world had no one for 1 year in New York. So if you want to carry out Krishna's instruction, Lord Chaitanya's instruction, then this is what you have to deal with. And that's why Krishna says, no one is more dear, nor will there ever be one more dear than the one who tries to teach the glories of bhakti to others. If it was so easy, why would Krishna say that? If the people are just lining up outside your door, Manobiram, give us Krishna. We hope one day it'll happen. Of course, meanwhile, material nature is harassing people more and more. That's why I give these examples of this. You would say, Quetchit, sometimes. This guy who went through, in 1 week, 2 atomic bombings. Then you'll say, well, but look, he lived till he was 90, so it's all right. We're always seeking how to avoid facing the realities. And in that way, our attachment to Krishna proceeds with more difficulty because we're attached to material existence. So Judd Bart is doing us a service. He's not trying to bring you down with negativity, negative preaching, Prabhu. He's pointing out the realities so that our bhakti lata, our creeper of devotion, can grow without obstruction. Now, if we had more time, I would talk about the forests of Vrindavan. The forests of Vrindavan, I'll briefly say, they are not some kind of passive background. You know that? The forest of Vrindavan is a bhakta, full of bhaktas. The bees, the birds, the trees, the Yamuna River, the creepers, they're all attached to Krishna. They're all fully conscious. So on the one hand, you have the forest of material enjoyment. On the other hand, you have the Vrindavan forest. And the Vrindavan forest is the perfect place for Krishna's pastimes. As a child, he plays with his cowherd boyfriends in the forest. As a child who's a little bit older, he brings the cows to the forest. And right before his teenage years, he has nighttime pastimes in the forest. So the forest is very important in Krishna Lila. But the forest, as I said, is not some kind of passive component of Krishna Lila. The forest is an active component. The trees bow down to Krishna with their branches laden with fruits. The grass all moves to point towards Krishna's feet wherever he's walking. The wind is blowing, bringing fragrances from different flowers to help in Krishna's pastimes. Everything in the forest is an active, conscious ingredient for Krishna's pleasure. So you have the forest of material enjoyment, and you have the forest of Braj. Anything else? Yes, didn't I? You haven't asked a question for a long time. It must be a good one you have stored up.
When everybody is cheating and lying, how do you know that truthfulness is still the right thing to do?
If everyone is cheating and lying, how do you know that truthfulness is still the right thing to do? It depends on if you're a bhakta or an abhakta. You know what an abhakta is? The opposite of a devotee. If you're an abhakta, a non-devotee, you have no idea what is dharma. And so therefore you don't care what is true, what is untrue. Just like so many politicians today. They say people don't want the truth. They say that openly. People want a nice story that makes sense of all the anxiety they're feeling. They think it makes sense. You understand? They don't want to know the facts. We old-timers think, just give the people the facts. That's what they want. No, they want a nice story that points out how someone else is to blame for their troubles. Your business is closed, you've lost your job. What's the problem? That group. And if we just do something about that group, your problems are over. No facts, just fantasy. But people are dumbed down. Like David Logie told me, what do the people know? We don't want them pretending they can tell the government what to do. Let them just watch their sports, watch their screens. So, in the age of Kali, you can read in first canto of Bhagavatam. You've read it? You will. Your mother and father will see that you read Bhagavatam. It's described, Dharma, the bull, has 4 legs. What are they? Truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, austerity. And all the legs are gone. There's one leg partially standing, and that's truthfulness. That's being wiped out now. Political leaders are openly saying, you're old-fashioned. You think the people want the facts. They don't want the facts. They want to know who's responsible for their suffering, what group. Point out to them a group that's the cause of all their troubles, supposedly, and the people will do whatever you say. One former president of the USA in the 1960s said, look, here's the reality. You take the most intelligent, most qualified minority person and convince the lowest class person that he or she is more intelligent and more competent than the most intelligent minority person. What will that person do? The other person? That person will let you pick his pockets, take all the money, and you can point out, this minority person seems more qualified, more intelligent than you, but actually you're better. In your most degraded condition, redneck condition, you're better. Pick my pockets. And then the president said, actually, why pick the pockets? That person will empty out his pockets for you. The same old story. As Dhritarashtra said in the first verse of Bhagavad Gita, Mamakam Pandavas Chaiva. what did my people do? And the other group. He split the dynasty into the Kauravas and the Pandavas. That's a false concept introduced by Dhritarashtra because he was so attached to having his sons in power. So therefore, first verse of Bhagavad Gita shows you body consciousness, divide and conquer. What did my sons, Mamakam Pandavas Chaivam, and those Pandavas, what are they doing? And throughout the first chapter, what does Arjuna keep bringing up to Krishna? Bodily concept, but in a more elevated way. Swajana. They're all Swajana. Both sides on the battlefield. They're all our people. Therefore I can't fight. Can't do my duty against injustice. So Dhritarashtra was lower on the scale of bodily nescience. He split the dynasty. My sons and the Pandavas. The Kauravas and the Pandavas. Whereas Arjuna is higher up on the bodily platform. Swajana, they're all my people on both sides of the battlefield. They're all related to me. Therefore I can't fight because of my bodily relation with everyone. They're all Swajana. And that's why Krishna said, you're speaking nonsense. You're supposed to stand up for justice. So I've been explaining. It's like someone comes to your home and commits a crime. And then you call the police. The police come and they say, well, actually, we can't apprehend that criminal, even though we know who he is. We can't apprehend him because he's related to one of our police officers. That's Allegory. This is Arjuna's point. I'm related to everyone on both sides. I can't fight. But he's supposed to uphold justice as a Kshatriya. So again, it's like a policeman refusing to arrest a criminal because actually he's my third cousin. It can never happen. But then people accuse Bhagavad Gita of sponsoring violence. This is the madness. Anything else? Yes.
So I'm relatively new to Hare Krishna movement.
So am I.
Yeah. And so like I really relate to the person being like talking about
Talking about what?
like the material world and that kind of thing.
Well, this chapter is the forest of material enjoyment. What can I do?
How do you find your dharma or your like purpose when you come under the illusion of what you've been living in?
You have to take it from the source of Dharma. That's Bhagavad Gita. The source of Dharma is giving you what is Dharma. That's why at the end of Bhagavad Gita, you've read Bhagavad Gita? At the end, you may remember, Krishna says, give up all your conceptions of Dharma and just take the Dharma from me. Why was he saying give up all conceptions of Dharma? Because people have so many false Dharmas. Our Dharma is that our group is the best. Our bodily group is the best. Our Dharma is that we should cut everyone's throats. We should cut all the animals' throats. That's our Dharma. Krishna is saying, throw all that out and take it from me. So then you need to study the science of Krishna. Now that you've read Bhagavad Gita, what comes next? Exactly. You have a set of Bhagavatams? Wonderful. That's the first words I ever said to a devotee when I was deep in illusion. I walked up to a devotee and said, do you have Srimad Bhagavatam? I was really looking for it. So you're very fortunate. You're getting Srimad Bhagavatam today. Congratulations. Yes, I was going to talk today about the Munjaranya forest. but the Judd Bharrat's lessons in this chapter overwhelmed me. But you know what happens in the Munjaranya forest? Forest fire. And Krishna saves the cows and cowherd boys. The question is, how in Vrindavan forest could there be forest fires? Actually, some acharyas say it's not possible. But in the case of the first forest fire, after the Kaliya incident, the forest fire was actually started by a friend of Kaliya's, wanting to avenge Kaliya. Then again, some acharyas say that Krishna made the illusion of a forest fire to drive the Brijvasis closer to him. Then in the case of the second forest fire, in the Munjaranya forest, some say that was started by a friend of Palambasura, because just before that, Palambasura had been terminated by Balaram. Remember? So some say that's who caused the forest fire. So in other words, in Vrindavan, forest fires don't happen spontaneously, spontaneous combustion. They happen, Krishna allows it to happen so that the residents of Vrindavan love him even more. And the residents of Vrindavan, they're not thinking, save our skin, Krishna, save us. They're thinking, we can't live in separation from you. If we die, how can we be attached to your lotus feet? So therefore, save us, save our association with you. They're not thinking, save our skin. They're thinking, save our attachment to you. You were going to ask something? Just saying your name sent me off.
Thank you for the insightful words. So, you often say that hearing and chanting solves all problems.
I'm simply repeating what the Shastra said.
Yes, I was just wondering, my question is that how do we always keep that in center and not let these other thoughts creep in that actually I can take some material, that I need to take some material measures to solve my material problems.
But by chanting and hearing, you get the intelligence how to solve the problems, if they are solvable. Ultimately, the big problem is material existence itself. How are you going to solve that? That's the trauma in of itself. And within the trauma of material existence are various subordinate traumas. But we like to deal with the subordinate traumas and forget the big picture. The big picture is that material existence is trauma itself. But we refuse to see that. And when Jadbar says, "Quachit," sometimes we jump on that. Yeah, just sometimes. But in our mind's eye, we see opportunities for satisfaction. So we need to be deprogrammed. And by hearing Bhagavatam, by chanting Hare Krishna, gradually your vision clears up and you can disassociate yourself from material nature. And beyond that, you learn how to use material nature in Krishna's service. Because the material energy is Krishna's energy. So with your great amounts of energy, think how to use it all for Krishna's pleasure. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.